Hello, my beautiful friend. Welcome to Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host. Today with us, we have Joseph Brooks. He grew up in a violent neighborhood where most of his friends never made it out. And today he speaks to students and organizations across the country about resilience, leadership, and the power of believing their future is bigger than their circumstances. And I know that last part will really resonate with you as a caregiver because we often feel that our lives are just determined to continue to be the same, but they won't. So, welcome, Joseph.
Thank you very much for having me, Isabel. I'm happy to be here today. How are you?
I'm good. After all my technology drama, I think I'm relaxing.
Very good. Just breathe. It's gonna be okay.
That's something that you have. It's like, okay, we're taking time, we're taking this slowly,
Right?
and we'll figure things out.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm happy to be here, and sure, I'm open to any questions that you may have. So feel free.
Why don't we start with your own story? How did you end up being a speaker?
Well, I grew up, as my bio said, on the San Antonio East Side. Now, when I grew up on the East Side, it was the very violent area. It was so bad, in fact, that the police officers wouldn't come to our area. So if something was happening, if the gangs were fighting and we called 911, the operator would say, "What's your address again?" And we'd tell them, and they'd hang up on us. So that's how bad the neighborhood was. So my mother had me when she was 42 years old. She wasn't expecting me. I was a surprise. And so she raised me the best she could. My father was a truck driver. He had a sixth grade education, and they did the best they could. And so my mother, she would make me sit in front of the TV on Sundays and we would watch Jeopardy. It was a game show. And she said, just because you grow up in this area, you will not speak like these kids. You'll never join a gang. You won't abuse women. Well, and I'm like, Mom, I'm only six. Why are you telling me this? And so she wanted to set the standard early, and she did. And so she taught me to articulate and how to handle myself and carry myself from a very young age. And so I lost my dad when I was 11 to cancer. And then I would lose my mother when I was 18, also to cancer. So I had to grow up quickly. And the principles that they instilled in me of how to treat people and how to have character and kindness and consideration really took me a long way and kind of navigated my way into adulthood. And then shortly after my mother passed, after a couple of years, I would meet what would be the love of my life and marry young, and we had children very soon. And people would say, "Why did you have kids so early?" I was like, "We were poor. We didn't have TV or cable or satellite, couldn't afford it. So we just had children. That was entertainment." So we had our kids and navigated our lives, and we just loved each other so much. And we built a solid foundation from there.
I don't know for what reason, but lately I've been in contact with people that have been forced to grow up very quickly. And I think in past episodes of these podcasts, I've mentioned my niece and nephew, their dad just passed away. And I was talking with my sister and I told her, like, I'm not gonna feel sorry for her because I went through the same, and you went even worse because you lost both your parents. I only lost one. So you don't feel sorry, but you do understand what it means to very quickly you have to make decisions very quickly, very fast,
Correct.
and those decisions are sort of like life or death
That's true.
decisions. Because And probably they're not life or death, but they will shape the rest of your life.
That's right. That's right. And that's what happened to me. And it's interesting you say that we'd have to make decisions because the love of my life that I got married to, we had 5 wonderful kids together. We built a business together that lasted over 23 years. And in 2020, I would lose her, and she was on a respirator. And I had to make a decision whether or not to keep that respirator on or not. Hardest decision I ever had to make. And when we were early married, she said, if I'm ever on a respirator, don't allow me to be on it. Take me off. And so I had to make that decision. And even though it was a request, it's still, you carry some guilt and you feel bad. I had to look at my kids and make that decision. And so you're right. Sometimes you have to make those decisions and they're critical and you have to make them on the spot. When the doctor came to me, he asked me and I had to make that decision. So you're right. You have to pivot and make the decision and have some mental clarity as much as you can, even in that tough spot.
How have you kept a clear vision that life is going to get better?
Isabel, I was married to an incredible woman. She was, I think God said he built her and he was like, this is excellence. And he blessed me with her. And she taught me so much. When we met, I was just like out there. I was, in my 19, I had really no vision. And she was so calm and forgiving and kind. And she taught me how to trust in God and how to rely on Him with everything. And so I cared for her for 6 years previous to her demise. And during that 6 years, she went through extraordinary pain. I mean, it was hard for me to watch. One of her fears was anesthesia. So she would have multiple operations, amputations without anesthesia. So you can imagine how that was. And it was horrible. And I would just sit there and cry. I felt so helpless. And so I would just try to take care of her the best I could. I'd brush her hair, I'd sing her favorite songs, I'd play her favorite movies, just to love and care for her during those hard parts. But what she showed me, even in all of the pain, she never got angry. She never got resentful. She never blamed anyone. She was always loving. She was always kind. And even in such excruciating pain, I mean, I remember nights where she would just put the pillow over her face and bite down because she didn't want the kids to hear her scream. It was that severe. And she taught me how to take one day at a time and just reset each and every day like it's the first day of your life. If you're able to do that, you'll have perspective as to if this was the last day of my life on earth, how would I want to live it? How would I want to be remembered? And if you have that mindset, no matter what happens, you're able to stay focused and keep walking forward. Most people, they can't do that. And so what happens is you get inundated and depressed and bogged down. Of course, I had sorrow, but I would cry. My kids would cry, but we would keep moving forward while we were crying until eventually we healed. So just taking it one day at a time. It sounds simple, but that's the truth.
I think it is easy to bring that perspective once you have gone through, like, now with perspective, now that it's over, that you have gone through that season in your life, I think once we're done with something, it's easy like, "Oh, this would have been so much better."
Right.
But when you're in the midst of it, when you're,
Mhm.
like, drowning with all these decisions, with all these feelings, because it's not
Yes.
about decisions. We make decisions all the time. Like,
Right.
just before starting these podcasts, I took the decision of doing several things so my camera would work. There were
Right.
at least 5 decisions that I had to make before we could hit record.
Right.
So we make a lot of decisions every day, but those decisions are very loaded sentimentally.
Right.
What advice do you give for someone who is with all these big emotions that is feeling like this is another day that I'm going to have to make all these difficult decisions? What is your advice to someone who's in that circumstance?
And I'll talk to you from experience. And when I was caring for my wife for those 6 years, keep in mind, I was also maintaining a business and a family of five. So there were a lot of decisions because life kept going. And so I'll be honest, there were days where I would sit in my truck and I'd cry. But when I was with my clients, I was my best self. And I had to put my mindset into it isn't about me. It's about my late wife. It's about my children. It's about my business or our business. And once I shifted that focus onto someone else and something else, I was able to function because all I had to do was show up, be present, and do what I was called to do. And when you put yourself in the place of a servant, it actually takes a load off of you because you aren't so inundated with the woe is me and my God and all this pressure and I've got to pay bills and I've got to, we had over $2 million in medical expenses and no insurance. That's something that can weigh on your mind. But I
Yes.
realized that if something happened to me, the family, the business, my late wife, they wouldn't be taken care of. So I had to go in with the mindset of a servant. It freed me up to serve. And while I was serving, it also gave me peace because I was taking care of someone and something else. And so I would say, don't get wrapped up in self. And it's hard to believe me, I've been there. It's hard to say that, but when you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling overwhelmed, go serve someone else. Go to a homeless shelter and serve, and you will feel so much better as opposed to just locking yourself off and bringing it all in because it will just break you down and you'll spiral into a deeper depression. I went through that when my mother died. It was about me. I didn't have parents and what I'm going to do. And I've got responsibility. I've got to grow up. And that mindset almost drove me to suicide. I'll be honest. I mean, it got me to a suicidal depression. And so in the next stage, when I was faced with my late wife, I learned to train my mind into being a servant. And from that perspective, I was able to have peace even while going through fire. And I was able to come out through the other side a lot better than when I went in, if that makes sense.
Do you feel that there is, because I mostly work with women,
Okay.
and I think women, well, I don't think, we have been socialized to serve.
Right.
One of the things that I find very interesting, you go to a Christmas party or a Thanksgiving party, it's usually women serving the meal, cooking, heating, putting everything together.
That's right.
And that extrapolates into absolutely everything.
Right.
What I'm trying to get from here is that obviously we've been socialized different. I do think that one component is how perfectionist we have to do our lives.
Mm.
And I think that is both in female and male roles, we have to be perfect in what we're doing. And there's so much pressure on it.
Yeah.
So you had to be perfect in getting those bills, in paying those bills, in getting that business going. How do you move out from, I have to be perfect in all of these things that I have to be perfect, and be present instead?
Give yourself grace.
I love that.
Yeah. Give yourself grace. We're not perfect. No one's perfect. We're all fallible. We all make mistakes each and every day. And even the people that say they're perfect, they're lying, which makes them imperfect. So no one's perfect. So give yourself grace. If you can't make it to your child's soccer game because you were running over at work, it's okay. Don't go into a spiral about that. You'll go to the next game. You'll love your child, you'll apologize to him, and you just keep going on. So oftentimes you mentioned that word perfect. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. When I had to pay those bills, for instance, that $2 million, I didn't have it. There was no way I could pay $2 million in medical expenses. But what I did do is I went to the medical director and I sat down with her. And even if it was $1 a day, which sounds ridiculous, I was going to do something. But I wasn't going to be under the pressure that, oh my God, I've got to pay this $2 million. No, I gave myself grace. And in so doing, I sat in front of her and I said, I don't have the $2 million, but what can I do? And she said, a friend of yours called last night, asked how much you owed in your medical expenses, and she paid it. Oh,
Wow.
yes. So when you give yourself grace, but you're attempting to do the right thing, it's amazing the opportunities and the doors that open because now you're putting that pressure on yourself. And if you miss something, apologize and move on. And next time, you don't miss it. But don't go into a point where it's like, oh my God, I did this. And it's so much pressure. Listen, I have 3 daughters and I taught them the same way. They're all very successful in their careers. And my oldest daughter, she went to college, she got a degree for education. And she went into education field for a couple of years. And then she got a call from a friend who told her, why don't you come do what I do? It's in the tech industry. So my daughter calls me. She says, Dad, I don't know anything about tech. I got my degree for education. And I said, you just go and you learn about it as you go. And when you make mistakes, Google it and figure it out, or YouTube it and figure it out. She went on and she had her bumps and she learned, she had grace on herself. And now she's a sought after tech professional. I never would have imagined it. So learning that grace that, yes, I'm going to make a mess up. I'm not perfect. As long as you have that grace on yourself, you'll be able to accomplish anything.
It was probably about a year ago that I recorded a podcast with Tracy Poe, and we were discussing how harsh we are when we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
First of all, how do you catch yourself when you're being so harsh with yourself? And then once you've identified all those horrible thoughts that you're telling yourself,
Right.
how do you fix them?
Well, first of all, what I had to come to the realization about was when I was growing up, I was bullied. I was bullied severely. I mean, it was bad. You know, I had kids spit in my face, talk about my body composition. It was bad. So of course, I go into life with this mindset that I'm not good enough. And I even had relationships that I was in as an adult where I was told or made to feel I wasn't good enough. But what I realized, Isabel, I read when I began to read the Bible and go to church, and I said, you know what? I was created for a purpose, and God created me, and He doesn't make junk. So instead of me saying how bad I am, I'm going to say how good I am. The world will say you're arrogant and conceited, but they would. But I grew up on the east side of town. And what amazed me was that the girls that I grew up with, the world would call, and I'm sorry, unattractive. That's what the world would say. But if you spoke to these women, they walked around like they were supermodels and you couldn't tell them anything. The confidence level was so high. And I learned something from that. I said, why are we waiting for someone to compliment us? You wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and you say, I'm beautiful. It's not a lie. You are. God doesn't make junk. And when those thoughts come into your mind to tell you that you aren't pretty enough, you aren't smart enough, that you aren't capable enough, you can't build a business, you can't do anything, I determine those are lies.
Because
And
they
when
are.
yeah, they are lies, they're lies. And so, how do you counteract a lie but with the truth? So, if my mind is saying I'm dumb, the truth is I'm pretty smart. If my mind is saying I'm ugly, I'm pretty good looking. So, it's just making a decision not to buy the lie. So, whatever your mind, those negative things that your mind is telling you, always remember the positive is the truth. And you'll have to say it out of your mouth so you can believe it and you can receive it. Even if someone, a perfect example is my son, my youngest son, Samuel. He came out of the womb with this perspective. When he was 6 years old, he was playing Little League football. And he was in a game, and there was a parent screaming at him and belittling him and berating him. And it just got ugly. The parents were worse than the kids. So on the way home, I said, Sam, I'm so sorry about that parent. And he said, Sir? I said, that man that was yelling at you, I'm so sorry he was acting like that and his behavior. He said, Dad, I don't hear my haters. I said, What'd you say? He said, if someone's speaking negative to me, I could see your lips moving, but I don't have to hear what you say. And it was so profound.
It
And I,
is.
yes, he's 6 years old. So that mindset he's always had. And because he's had that, he's always believed he was the best. And he would say it. And I thought it was arrogant. He'd say, I'm the best. And I didn't know whether to thank him or pat him on the back. And my other kids are like, who is this kid? But everything he went into, he said, I'm the best. And what I learned, Isabel, every time he said it, he excelled. He was playing football at the high school level, and he wanted to be an all-star. And they gave him some little trophy because he was doing well, and he threw it in the trash. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm the best. I deserve to be an all-star. So I'm going to go be an all-star. And he became an all-star. He went to pharmacy school. He said, I'm going to go to pharmacy school, get my MBA at the same time. And he's graduating next spring, top of his class. And it's just the mindset that no matter what you tell him, no matter how you try to make him feel, he doesn't receive it. And I said, what if all of us had that mindset? That no matter what anyone said, including ourselves in our mind, it wouldn't stop us. And so he said he learned it from me. But, that's what I would encourage, and especially women, because like I said, I have 3 daughters, had a wonderful wife. You guys, I know the pressures that are on you. I see the L'Oreal commercials and I see the do your hair and flip this. I mean, it's like your hair is good enough. You don't have to flip it this way and put this in it and put all this, but you're constantly inundated. Essentially, the message is you're not good enough. So when you hear that, yeah, when you hear that, it resonates and then you carry that into life. But the truth is, you are great. You're more than enough. And so, what I would say is anytime a negative thought comes into your mind, counteract it with a positive thought. Just say it out loud. I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I can do this. And it's the truth. And once you continue to say that, your heart begins to believe it, your spirit begins to believe it, and you begin to believe it. And it's amazing because what will happen is those negative thoughts will begin to disintegrate. They won't totally go away, but they will get less and less and less. So, yeah, speak positively about yourself. Don't wait for someone else to do it.
I think we create our own realities because when we're just telling ourselves whatever we're telling ourselves, we
Hmm.
create that.
Sure, you do.
So, but I find it so hard to move past what we're saying. It has to be a daily practice of,
Every day, every day. And it goes back to that day one. You have to look at every day as if it's the first day, and I always say the last day of the rest of your life. Take today for what it's worth. And in this day, what impact do I want to have? And how do I want to treat myself? And then do it again the next day and the next day and continually. Because you're right, those thoughts are so powerful. Those lies, I call them, they're so powerful and they're constant. It's like it's a barrage. They keep hitting and hitting and hitting. And that's why people fall into depression and anxiety and all of the mental illness that we have because those thoughts, they hit us all. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I after my late wife passed, I gained, I think it was 330 pounds.
wow,
Yeah, I was big. And it wasn't muscle. I gained a lot of weight. I was depressed. I was just eating. It was bad. In my mind, I thought I looked like I did when I was bodybuilding. No one could tell me different. Until my kids took a side view picture of me and they showed it to me. And I was like, you let me walk around like this? But, but because I had the right mindset at that time, although I was going through depression because of losing my wife, I was able to get back, get in the gym, get to where I wanted to be physically, but my mindset kept me going. I didn't fall into a depression because of the way I looked, because in my mind, I felt great. I felt like I looked great. And I have to do that even today. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of motivational speakers. If I get in my own mind and begin to believe, well, you're not as qualified, you don't have as much experience, you haven't been here, you haven't done this, you haven't done, I would never take a step forward. But I put my suit on and I look in the mirror and I said, I'm $1 million. I'm just as good as these guys who have been around for 40 years. I have a mouth, I have a voice. We share that. So why am I different? I'm not. And like I said, the world would say, man, you're arrogant. No, I'm not. We've misinterpreted confidence for arrogance. But what we're saying when we believe the lie is, God, you made a mistake. And we're doubting him. He created everything and he doesn't make junk. And when we buy into those lies, we're saying, you messed up with me. No, he didn't. He wants us to have that confidence, that silent confidence that when we walk into a room, we know we belong there. I went into the Fortune 500. I've never been in Fortune 500 arena at all. My late wife and I, we had a personal training studio. And after she passed away, I wanted to do something to help some. So I went to a Fortune 500 company. Didn't know anything about it, didn't know what I was doing, but I went in like I did. And in my first year, I stood in front of the board of directors, over thousands of employees sharing my story. I was listed on the cover of the company magazine in my first year, not knowing, never been here before. I sat with the president in his office. It was a beautiful office. We had lunch together. We talked. He asked for my advice. I created two programs that were implemented in this Fortune 500 company. It's been around like 100 years. Why hadn't anyone else thought of it? But I knew who I was, and regardless to what room I was standing in and how many degrees the other people had, I believed I belonged in that room. And I took that confidence with me and it kept resonating. And so it's contagious. People will see that in you. And even if you don't belong in the room, statistically, if you believe you belong in the room, they're going to believe you belong in the room and they're going to invite you to more rooms. So it's all the mentality. You know, when I was invited to sit to lunch with the president, if I was in my own head and I believed my own lies, I don't have a college degree, I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name, and the president's calling me to have lunch with him, oh, I would have been shaking in my boots. But I'm like, no, we bleed the same, we breathe the same oxygen. He's a man, I'm a man. So I went in with that confidence and we became good friends. And so if you have that confidence and you have walk with that, it's amazing. And even though the thoughts, when I was walking to his office, those thoughts were coming. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? He's probably going to put you down. Well, even when I'm walking to the office, but I walked in the office confidently and none of that happened. So I would just say, as hard as it is, make it a practice every day to say, I'm amazing. Because everyone listening to this, you are amazing. You're an amazing individual. So you say that each and every day. And if you have to make a song and sing to it every day, do it. But that's I'm serious. Make your own song. You can do it with technology now. But yes, that's what I would say. It's what's gotten me through some of the toughest times in my life. And I know it works. And it's not like manifesting or a ritual. It's the truth, all it is. And if you say it each and every day, it's going to come to fruition. And that's what I would recommend.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
Where can people find more about you, connect with you?
Sure. You can contact me through my email, which is the best fitness by Brooks at gmail.com. And my website is www.authenticlifeinspirationalspeaking.com. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you or help you in any way, answer any questions. I'll make myself available for you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think this was so inspiring in so many levels,
Thank
and
you for
I'm
having
pretty
me.
sure everybody's going to enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Isabel. You are a wonderful host, and I appreciate you. And have a wonderful day, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hey, just for you to know, the content presented in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any affiliated organizations or sponsors. If you need additional advice, please contact the right partner for you.